Welcome back to chem&code. In this video we will talk about arrays. So arrays are important in pretty much any programming languages. So if you're intending to be a programmer or a computer scientist, it is a compulsory thing to know an array and you should be able to program using arrays. So this video is for beginners. So if you have absolutely no idea about what is an array or how arrays work, then you would still be able to understand the video fully from scratch. But if you already know what an array is, you should still look at the practice programs that I will be making, so you can brainstorm and you can improve your logic building and improve your programming as well. So the content for this video will be, first we will talk about what is an array and why do we need to make an array. Secondly, we will talk about array from memory point of view. We will not be going into the depth of array from memory point of view. We will just be printing the addresses of array from a very simple program, so you would be able to see for yourself how arrays are actually stored in the memory without going too much into the hardware or memory configuration of the CPU. Lastly, which is the most important part as well, we will be making programs. The difficulty of these programs will be from beginner to moderate and then to the advanced level. So first we will make the program finding the number of times a certain element is in an array, and then we will see how to reverse an array, and then we will see how to find the minimum or the maximum element in an array, and using that knowledge we will be making a program how to sort an array. The last program, how to sort an array, is really important, and it is recommended that you brainstorm first before making the videos. You should do the rough work on paper with a pencil, so you can understand the programming in general. The point is not to just understand or learn these programs, the point is to learn programming. So that is the thing. Before beginning the program, I will give you a time to brainstorm yourself. Even if you can't make the program, you should still try to think about how to make it. That is really the point of these videos. So right now we will see what is an array and when we should make an array. So right here we have an example. Suppose there is an English exam that is of 50 marks in total, and these are the marks that each student has obtained in the exam. So there are 5 students in total and their marks are given here in the exam. So one of the ways in which we could store all of this information in a C++ program for any reason, such as maybe I wanna find the student with the highest marks or the student with the lowest marks. I want to compute the average of the students. So you could perform any kind of computation, and to do that you would need to make a program of it. So now let's try to store this data in a C++ program. So we would do it in something like that. That is one of the possible ways. Int student1 is equal to 50. So please note I'm using an integer variable here just for convenience. Otherwise, if we have marks of student that is in points, for example, there could be 50.5 marks, there could be 6.7 marks. So if we had such a database that is having marks in points, then we should really be using a float variable or a double variable. But just for convenience, I am here going to use an integer variable. Int student2 is equal to 40, student3 is equal to 0, student 4 is equal to 5, and student 5 is equal to 10 marks. So right here we have stored the marks of the student. So the main idea behind arrays is that if we had more students, right here we only have 5 students, but there are not 5 students in a class. There are plenty of students, and there can be other section too. So suppose we have a really large number of something and we want to store them in a program. So in the real life, such examples occur all the time, where you would want to store so many variables, and to type each of them like that, it would get really messy and it would take an incredibly large amount of time. So for instance, if I had about 100 students, I would need to make a variable for each one of them, and I would have to manually type them by hand. So it would get really messy, and beside that, it is just not a good programming practice. I mean, we have the arrays for that, so use them, right? So that is the idea of an array and why we need to introduce an array. So let's see how I can simplify all that work using an array. So I could do it like this: int student 5. So what this line means is we are going to have 5 variables, and we would need to store data in those 5 variables. So instead of writing each line one by one, I have simplified all that work by just making one single line. So that is really the essence of arrays and how arrays work. So now we are going to see how we would input something from a user in an array and how do we print out an array. So arrays work really like any variable does, but they have some conveniences that we are going to study now. So right here we have an array of 5 elements. This means it goes from 0 to 4. Please note that in computer, in programming, whenever we talk about numbers, we usually mean it from 0 to something. That is indeed how the hardware works. So now I'm going to show you what are the different ways to declare arrays or to store content or values in an array. So we could do it like this: int student 5 is equal to, we could store all of these marks together in just one line like this: 5 10. So the earlier work that we did, we wrote 5 lines and we stored marks of each student in those 5 lines. We have simplified all that work in a single line, in a single statement. So that is the essence of array. Another way to do the same thing would be like, so here we haven't declared what is the size of an array. So the compiler or the C++ program will automatically deduce that from the value we are assigning to the code. So if I do this, it would automatically know that there are going to be 5 elements in the array: 50, 40, 0, 5 and 10. And now another way is to first declare the array like this, and now we can manually enter the value of the elements in the array like this: student 0 is equal to 50, student 1 is equal to 40. So this approach is a bit like the variable approach that we discussed earlier. In general, array is just like a couple of variables that are grouped together for convenience. And now we are going to see how to take input from user in an array. So just like we do it in simple variables, int variable and cin variable. So that is how we take value from user in a variable, right? So in array, the same thing is followed, the same principle is followed. So here we have declared that there are going to be 5 elements in our array. So now we are going to ask the user to enter the value into the array. We can do it in a for loop. Int I is equal to 0, I goes from 0 to 4 and I plus plus. Cin student I. So basically what this line of code does is it takes the input from the user from numbers 0 to 4. In computer, in especially programming, because of the memory configuration of hardware in programming, the convention that is followed is to always start from 0. So enter the value of 5 students, we go like student 0, student 1, student 2, student 3 and student 4. So that is 5 students. So the same thing is followed here. So what is actually happening here is that cin student 0 and then cin student 1, cin student 2 and so on until the cin student 4 is reached. That all work is being done here in these 2 lines of code. So now we are going to print our array, and array is printed in pretty much the same way the regular variable is printed, or the same way we are taking the input from the user. So cout student I. So now let's see what our program is doing. So I'm going to run it here, g++ test.cpp, which is the name of the file. The program is expecting us to enter something, to enter the number. So I'm going to write the numbers, write the marks 50, 40, 0, 5 and 10. And now after I press enter, the program will print me the output, or in other words, it will print out the marks of the student that I have just entered. So here we have 50, and then we have 40, and then we have 0, 5, 10. I have not here entered space, so if I do that, the program would be a bit more easier to understand. Clear g++ test.cpp a.out, and now I'm going to enter the marks 50, 40, 0, 5, and 10, and let's see. So we have our marks of the students here in a pretty neat fashion, and we didn't have to make so many lines of code for it. So that is the purpose of an array.